Welcome to Technia TV. Hello, I am Dr. Sandeep Kumar. Today, I am delivering lecture on conducting discriminant analysis. The steps involved in conducting discriminant analysis consist of formulation, estimation, determinations of significance, interpretation, and validations. Here, there are different steps of discriminant analysis. First one, formulate the problem. Second one, estimate the discriminant function coefficient. Third one, determine the significance of the discriminant function. Fourth one, interpret the results. And the fifth one, assess validity of discriminant analysis. Now I am explaining the first step, which is formulate the problem. The first step in discriminant analysis is to formulate the problem by identifying the objectives, the criteria variable, and the independent variables. The criteria variable must consist of two or more mutually exclusive and collective exhaustive categories. When the dependent variable is interval or ratio scaled, it must first be converted into categories. For example, attitude towards the brand measured on a 6-point scale could be categorized as unfavorable, which is 1, 2, 3, or favorable 4, 5, 6. Alternatively, one could plot the distribution of the dependent variable and form groups of equal size by determining the appropriate cutoff points for each category. The predictor variables should be selected based on a theoretical model or previous research, or in the case of exploratory research, the experience of the researcher should guide their selection. The next step is to divide the sample into two parts. One part of the sample, called the estimation or analysis sample, is used for the estimations. The other part, called the holdout or validation sample, is reserved for validating the discriminant function. When the sample is large enough, it can be split in half. One half serves as the analysis sample and the other is used for validations. The rules of the halves are then interchanged and the analysis is repeated. This is called double cross validation. Often, the distribution of number of cases in the analysis and validation samples follows the distribution in the total sample. For instance, if the total sample contains 50% loyal and 50% non-loyal consumers, then the analysis and validation samples would each contain 50% loyal and 50% non-loyal consumers. On the other hand, if the sample contains 25% loyal and 75% non-loyal consumers, the analysis and validation samples would be selected to reflect the same distribution, 25% versus 75%. Finally, it has been suggested that the validations of the discriminant functions should be conducted repeatedly. Each time, the sample should be split into different analysis and validations parts. The discriminant function should be estimated and the validation analysis carried out. Thus, the validations assessment is based on a number of trials. More rigorous methods have also been suggested. Now, I am explaining the step 2, which is estimate the discriminant function coefficient. Once the analysis sample has been identified, we can estimate the discriminant functions coefficients. Two broad approaches are available. First one, the direct method involves estimating the discriminant function so that all the predictors are included simultaneously. In this case, each independent variable is included regardless of its discriminating power. This method is appropriate when, based on previous research or a theoretical model, the researcher wants the discrimination to be based on all the predictors and Alternative approach is the stepwise method. In stepwise discriminant analysis, the predictor variables are entered sequentially based on their ability to discriminate among groups. This method is appropriate when the researcher wants to select a subset of the predictors for inclusion in the discriminant function. Now I am explaining the step 3, which is determine the significance of the discriminant function. It would not be meaningful to interpret the analysis if the discriminant functions estimated were not statistically significant. The null hypothesis that in the population the means of all discriminant functions in all groups are equal can be statistically tested. In SPSS, this test is based on Wilks lambda. If several functions are tested simultaneously, as in the case of multiple discriminant analysis, the Wilks lambda statistics is the product of the univariate lambda for each function. The significance level is estimated based on a chi-square transformation of the statistics. If the null hypothesis is rejected, indicating significant discriminations, one can proceed to interpret the results. Now I am explaining the step 4, which is interpret the results. The interpretations of the discriminant weights or coefficient is similar to that in multiple regression analysis. The value of the coefficients for a particular predictor depends on the other predictors included in the discriminant function. The signs of the coefficients are arbitrary, but they indicate which variable's value result in large and small function value and associate them with particular groups. Given the multicollinearity in the predictor variables, there is no unambiguous measure of the relative importance of the predictors in discriminating between the groups. With this caveat in mind, we can obtain some idea of the relative importance of the variables by examining the absolute magnitudes of standardized discriminant functions coefficient. Generally, predictors with relatively large standardized coefficients contribute more to the discriminating power of the functions as compared with predictor with smaller coefficients. Some idea of the relative importance of the predictors can be obtained by examining the structure correlations, also called canonical loadings or discriminant loadings. These simple correlations between each predictor and the discriminant function represent the variance that the predictors share with the function. Like the standardized coefficients, these correlations must also be interpreted with caution. Now I am explaining the step 5, which is assess the validity of the discriminant analysis. As explained earlier, the data are randomly divided into two subsamples. One, the analysis sample is used for estimating the discriminating function and the validation sample is used for developing the classification matrix. The discriminant weights estimated by using the analysis sample are multiplied by the value of the predictor variables in the holdout sample to generate discriminant scores for the cases in the holdout sample. The cases are then assigned to groups based on their discriminant scores and appropriate decisions rule. For example, to group discriminant analysis, a case will be assigned to the group whose centroid is the closest. The hit ratio or the percentage of cases correctly classified can then be determined by summing the diagonal elements and dividing by the total number of cases. It is helpful to compare the percentage of cases correctly classified by the discriminant analysis with the percentage that would be obtained by chance when the groups are equal in size, the percentage of chance classification is 1 divided by the number of groups. How much improvement should be expected over chance? No general guidelines are available, although some authors have suggested that classification accuracy achieved by discriminant analysis should be at least 25% greater than that obtained by chance. This is end of my lecture, which is the steps in discriminant analysis. Hope you will find it useful. Watch more lecture of research methodology or business research on Technia TV. Thanks a lot.